first person. One person in. I feel I should announce these in advance. Maybe that's what I'll do from now on. Hello, one person. Uno numero one. Now uno what? Uno numero nil. Hello, number one person in the room. Is it because everybody's watching my video that's just come out? Probably not. 2 people. Wow. One person, nil people. 2 people. It's hotting up. It's kicking off. How's it going, guys? Hi, Justin. Three people now. Seeing what I'm up to. Well, not a lot really, just sort of ticking along in relation to Linux and computers. I want to do a video, probably Sunday now, on installing Hyperbola Linux, the Libre distribution. I'll do it on a virtual machine, do it in a live stream. So that's my plan for Monday, so the next couple of days. Because there's a few, well, there's actually, the actual main install of Hyperbola Linux isn't really that complicated. It's just a variation on an Arch install, really. So there's a few things you need to do, like set up DCHP, assigning your IP basically, and so like a few things with the date command. You've got to explicitly set the date and time. Well, I don't know if you have to, but that's one of the things. And handling OpenRC, the init system. So most people probably familiar with systemd, of course, but OpenRC isn't that complicated. It's fine. The issues with Hyperbola in that setting it up, you might have some sound issues, and obviously it's a Libre distribution, so Wi-Fi cards can be an issue if they're proprietary. And yeah, there's just a few things with Hyperbola that you need to be aware of, so I'll probably try and go into that. Hopefully I can remember the things I had to do on my system, but I think I do. I'll work it out. But yeah, sound's a funny one, because with sound on Hyperbola, they use ALSA, but they also have this like bridging software. Well, it's called SNDIO, and I think it's originally a minimal. It's like a, I don't know if I want to say it's a socket. I can't remember. It's like a minimal BSD library for sound, and I think it's done to kind of separate the sound system from them. So it's to control audio channels outside of ALSA, I think. I can't remember, but yeah, SNDIO you need to set up. But it's fine. There's just a few things you need to do. So hopefully I will cover all of that. Hopefully I'll remember it, but I do have some other sort of reference documentation. So hi Nick, greetings. 4 people now. So if you guys have got any Linux computer or just general design on computer system ideas that you want to talk about, because I've had a few of those recently. Some of my videos, bit spicy, let's say, about the graphical user interface as a design idea in computer systems. I don't know. I will see what I think when you install it. I may try it on my modified Lenovo T500. Very nice. So you say it's modified. What is your T500 modified with? Is it the BIOS, or is it the hardware, or I'd be interested to know. 6 people now. BIOS and quad-core CPU, nice. So are you running LibreBoot or just Core Boot, or is it? You've also got CBIOS. Now it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever looked into CBIOS. I think you need it for certain BSD systems instead of Grub. It's all on like the LibreBoot documentation, but I can't remember. So the thing is, I haven't installed OpenBSD, for example, on a LibreBooted computer, on that kind of bare metal computer. So Libre GNU Boot, nice. So you don't want those microcode updates. Yeah, same here. Now it's funny with those microcode updates, because was it Brody Robertson did a video on the microcode updates, because he spoke with the LibreBoot developer, the same LibreBoot developer I actually spoken to, and it's interesting. When I spoke to them, I was actually speaking to them on a different piece of, or about a specific piece of hardware, about Wi-Fi cards. And if you look at their policy on microcode, their policy is now, in the last couple of years, that microcode is a necessary update, or almost a necessary evil, because of Intel's terrible CPU design, which has meant that whole generations of CPUs are compromised. And the argument is that the proprietary microcode from Intel that supposedly fixes these vulnerabilities, and or I think you've also got with the standard Linux kernel proprietary microcode in there, or something that mitigates like Spectre and Meltdown vulnerabilities on your CPU when you've got the kernel. But anyway, I've sort of gone a bit on tangent there, off tangent. When I spoke to them, they had a similar attitude to Wi-Fi cards. So I wanted a Libre Wi-Fi card, right? And I was talking to them about this, and they actually said, don't get a Libre Wi-Fi card, because the Libre Wi-Fi cards, and I don't know if this is exclusive to all of them, but maybe it was just the one I was speaking about, but I think they were talking about generally the Libre Wi-Fi cards, that the Libre Wi-Fi cards have hard-coded the actual software, the Libre software, and therefore it doesn't actually get updated, or it can't be updated, depending on the card you use, I think. So they were saying actually use the Intel Wi-Fi card, because you'll get the updates. Well, you get the updates, but of course they're proprietary updates. Now the irony to all this is, even if I wanted to use a proprietary Wi-Fi card, I wouldn't be able to use it on Hyperbola Linux, because Hyperbola Linux does not let you use a proprietary Wi-Fi card. It will not work. So I have to, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I can't remember if my Wi-Fi card actually has it hard coded, or it's just already in the Libre kernel. It just worked out of the box, basically. So maybe I should check. Libre is sketchy though. Well, this is the thing, yeah. Potentially sketchy. Hi David. I know you like the low spec Lenovo's. What's your thoughts on the new framework laptops? Okay. So here is my opinion on effectively all modern laptops, whether they're let's say Linux related or your general consumer laptop that will be bundled with Windows. Now, framework, I believe, are kind of modular. Let me have a look before I framework laptops. Okay. So framework laptops. So let's share the screen. So here we go. Framework laptops, okay? Now, here's my problem. When I'm looking at this, to me, one of the most important things is a numpad, a pointer stick, right? Because unfortunately, you're going to have to, at some point, use the graphical user environment, and you're going to have to use that pointer stick if you have one. Otherwise, you're going to have to use the trackpad, and I'm not going to use the trackpad. I'm not going to use a mouse. Now, there possibly or probably is a workaround where, and I have done a video on this, where you can technically use your keyboard as a mouse, and you can have, again, you can, the great thing about keyboard, you can do almost just about anything you want with it on Linux. But I do not want to be, this is the thing, the graphical user interface is great on a phone, right? You use your finger. The graphical user interface, as far as I'm concerned, by design, is a bad design. And I've gone into this in the videos. Anybody who's listening to this, watch those videos if you want to see my whole opinion on graphical user interfaces. So to me, if the focus is the keyboard, but I am going to be compromised by having to use the mouse and I don't have a track point, I'm not going to be using that laptop. Something I'm not really going to split the difference on. The other thing is where I've been talking about hardware, unless I'm going to be doing gaming or let's say very heavy processing, whether it's graphical or not, I'm not going to need something like a framework laptop. And if I look at some of the prices here, how much are these? I mean, £1,400. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a lot of processing power that perhaps you don't really need. It's one of those things where, and although I probably come across as very conceited in this regard, and I think my design instincts on this are sound, but I can't say for anybody or everybody what their requirements are. Maybe a framework laptop suits the person for whatever reason, but to me, if I look again at this framework laptop, yes, it's nice you can have a do-it-yourself edition, build in Linux, but I mean, surely you just want to install Linux, right? You just want to learn how it works by installing it, by building up these components. Yeah, so sorry, I kind of have sidestepped the modular. I guess I tenuously just mentioned it's like a modular design, but those modular components to me are not components I want. So unless I can get that keyboard that I want, to me it's irrespective of being modular. If I've got an old ThinkPad, they're relatively modular anyway. This is the tragedy of some new hardware, that it's all soldered together, and this ironic sense that now if you want to replace a battery easily, you've got to spend well over £1,400 on the latest hardware to be able to do that, or you have to settle for it all being like soldered together. Imagine buying your car. I mean, maybe that's the case, probably is the case with modern electric cars, but imagine buying your car and you can't open the bonnet. You're not allowed to open the bonnet of the car, right? You literally cannot do anything. Maybe that's what a modern Tesla is. I don't know. Because of course there is really no bonnet in a Tesla, is there? Because it's just an electric motor and software and batteries and some seats and airbags or whatever. So maybe this is it now. You don't really have access or own your hardware. So if you need that in a framework laptop, you need a powerful laptop that is modular, you know, that's fine. It's just if I'm being consistent, let's say, if I'm being consistent on these things, straight away, it's got a design principle that I'm not happy with, unless I can get that pointer stick. So, gonna kind of out of focus. Am I in focus now? Am I in focus? Am I in focus? Am I in focus? Am I in focus? There, I think I'm in focus now. So, I don't want to disappoint my. I don't want to disappoint you in my lack of knowledge really about the framework laptops, but it's like the System 76 laptops. They just seem to be overpriced. That's all I'm going to say. I'm sure they only make so many, and they've got a bespoke manufacturing line, and that's the price if you want modularity or replaceable parts. But just buy an old ThinkPad. I'm not angry, just disappointed. Maybe I should do a video on it. Maybe I should do a video on it. I see these things tenuously, and instantly I just think, why would you spend that money unless you really had to? I mean, let me put it this way, I'd almost advocate not buying a framework laptop if you need a powerful computer, and just save yourself the money. Because of the nature of computing now. If you need to go with a powerful computer, which is probably not going to be Libre, I don't know. Let me put it another way. If you look at LibreBoot's website, look at how little progress has been made in recent years regarding LibreBooting recent computers. And is the framework laptop really, in that sense, worth the money for a non-Libre computer, as much as it can be Libre, of course, in the context of Libre boot. But for the sake of modularity, yeah, for the sake of modularity, let me put it this way then, let me distill it down. For the sake of modularity, would you spend £1,400? I think you're English, so I'm guessing you work in pounds, or you're British, so you work in pounds. Would you spend £1,400 on a framework laptop, and I guess that's like the base level, and then quite possibly a lot more to have specific components, unless you really, really needed it. So if you're just your average consumer, say average consumer, so you just want a new laptop, is it really worth the money? I don't know. There's probably a lot to consider here. I use an Atheros. Sorry, I'm going back on the comments here. I'm using an Atheros one, AR5BXB63. Yeah, I'm not using that one. I did put it in one of my videos. I can't remember what I'm using. If you look at the one where I talk about Hyperbola, I think I mentioned in the description. I've got it listed there. Oh yeah, that's the video where I talk about my Libre booting the X60 a couple of weeks ago. Prosperous Potato. I'd rather have many non-modular ports that just will work than fewer that are modular but have to carry around a bunch of adapters everywhere. Yeah. And of course, another thing is everything is USB-C now. But when they do this, if you look at a lot of modern laptops, your general consumer laptop, they have like 2 USB-C ports. Well, maybe that's just an Apple thing. I don't know. It was more of the repair ethos that I liked, but for you, it's the fact it's not open hardware BIOS. Yes, it is. I don't know. It's one of those things where if I'm really breaking it down, I'd have to go over all of my videos because it's many things. There's many reasons why I wouldn't buy a framework laptop, is what I'm trying to say. Star Labs, I think, is still Coreboot. Okay. It's an open source Wi-Fi card, yeah. Yeah, I'm not the average consumer, but I'm running a smaller Framework 13 laptop for about 1,200. I bought it because of the repair and upgradability of the modern machine and support the repair. Okay, so in your instance, you're thinking longer term, right? You're thinking for the future, which I always advocate, future proofing, right? But for myself, if I'm put in perspective of future proofing, what I'm thinking is, okay, I spend a lot of time writing screenplays, for example, or I spend a lot of time writing. That's my main focus. So for me, and most importantly anyway, it's having a keyboard. And secondly, my computer use is keyboard centric, almost exclusively, with obvious exceptions. But my main focus and drive is even just to the TTY. I don't even have access to a mouse. I know you've got GPM or whatever, but I don't even have that installed. I don't use that. I don't like that. I don't need that. And even when I'm in the graphical user environment, I have things automated. I almost exclusively now don't, well, I haven't for a long time, use the mouse. Meaning that that's the first and possibly the most important thing. That design feature, to me, is the design feature of a laptop or even a desktop computer, is the keyboard. Irrespective of Libre software, irrespective of even the operating system. Then if I broke it down, what's the next issue? Well, it will be the operating system, right? Because if I'm using Windows and my focus is using the keyboard, I can't really utilize the keyboard in any meaningful way because of the, the kind of environment that Windows is, like I've covered in the previous video, you don't have options. I've done my best in previous years when I did have Windows. A brief time I went back to Windows, and I tried really, really hard to make it a keyboard centric. I spent, months, and I just couldn't. And then there were other things which doesn't really matter, but that was a huge issue. And I just, again, it kind of was like one of the final straws that made me never ever wanting to use Windows for my personal use again. Then let me put it this way. So if you're obviously going to Linux, right? And you're learning Linux, let's say. If you learn Linux down to its core components, you break down the cliche GNU/Linux. It is by definition the Linux kernel with the core utilities, right? Those are the kind of the most important things, right? So when you break it down to that, and to my mind, you break it down to the core components. You have sensible defaults. So something like Arch Linux is your sensible default. Then from there, you have your base install, and you build up the things that are most important to you. So whatever it is, and mine is focus is the TTY, the non-graphical environment, and then obviously I have to have a graphical environment for mainly the web browser, and I don't know, maybe some other exceptions. So really, it's partly a process, and it's partly breaking the problem down, because really what the whole thing we're talking about here is that our options are limited, right? We've got problems. We have problems with computing, or we have a specific problem. Mine ultimately came back to screenwriting. So again, the keyboard is the most important thing. Having a good laptop keyboard, or having a laptop keyboard as well for the operating system, that I can do what I need to do. And I can only really do that with something like Linux, or I guess BSD. So it's layers of importance, and it's a process, and you've got to break it down into components, so to speak. So again, for me, if I go back to the Framework laptop, and my first thing is, okay, I want a keyboard, right? A nice keyboard. And I'm sure Framework make nice keyboards, but a cliche ThinkPad, secondhand or brand new at a more reasonable price, I'm gonna get a good keyboard if it's in good condition. And then if I'm getting a secondhand ThinkPad, for example, unless I need, if I've got the keyboard I need, unless I'm playing video games, to me, there's no reason to spend that money. But I can't speak for everyone. I can't speak for yourself. But my instinct, if I did need that extra power, that computer power, my instinct would be a ThinkPad still. I wouldn't be happy with the situation. Maybe Framework laptops, or even System 76 computers, are the inheritor of the old ThinkPad style. But how can you not have a pointer stick? And again, I do not want to have to leave the home row. Leaving the home row is like a sin. It's a design that I'm escaping from the point of a laptop computer, it's the keyboard. It's not the mouse. So I hope that's sort of broken it down in a different context. I'm not really dissing on framework laptops or computers, so to speak, but it's just saying that, do you need to go down that route to buy one? Is it worth it? You know, in a way, is just a good condition secondhand ThinkPad with the appropriate computing power that will should future-proof you, despite the situation with probably desktop Linux in the future, and certainly while you're running Windows if you're running Windows. But don't get me wrong, if you're running a 10, 15, 16-year-old ThinkPad and you intend to run Windows on it, then clearly you're not doing it right, because you're not going to be able to run Windows 11 properly. You'd have to, you know, hack it or whatever it is to run Windows 11 now on an older computer. But you're probably going to have no RAM left, because it's going to just idle it all in the background while you do nothing. So you're not going to be future-proofing that ThinkPad if, you know, you're in a situation where you're running Windows 11. However, if you're running a light desktop environment, hey, it's probably going to be a lot better. Even better, if you're running a window manager, you're going to be idling at 100 to 120 megabytes, probably. That's how I do it on my my ThinkPad X201, which is nearly 15 years old now. I've got two of them. It effectively idles at, you know, 100 to 120 megabytes. My 32-bit ThinkPad running Hyperbola idles at about 70 megabytes. So in the TTY, and I think in the GUI, well, in the window manager, it's probably about another 10 megabytes. I don't know, 80, 90 megabytes at most. So again, there's a lot at play here. When I talk about, you know, computer elitism, and I've been accused of this, I'm really saying it from a design perspective. I'm trying to explain why things are the way they are, why things are not necessarily better the way they are. But I'd never, and I've said this before, I'd never tell anybody to go against what they need to do. For example, if they were running a business, I wouldn't tell them, for example, not to have suddenly say somebody's got a business, right? And they use Shopify. That's where their shop is and all this kind of stuff. And they go to me, oh, you know, you're against, you know, this kind of commercialism on the web, and that I'm going to delete my Shopify account and disappoint all my customers, and my family are going to starve because I can't fulfill orders. I'll be like, what are you doing? You're mad. Why are you listening to this dude on the internet, you know, taking it to, you know, to some sort of fundamentalism? You know, this is your business. Why would you do that to yourself? Do you see what I mean? I'm not that kind of person. But what I would say is, I don't think a lot of these things are necessarily good by design. I don't think they're necessarily good for our lives. I don't even think they're necessarily good for how we run some of these businesses. So, but it's not. This is not like it's not like being a fundamentalist about this, if that makes sense. A year ago, I would spend money on framework. Now I'm not so sure after learning so many new things about electronics and how things work. Nino Hedy. Good. That's good to hear. Again, it's like anything in life. If you're considering a couple of things, right? If you're considering, okay, I want a computer for the long term that I can effectively repair, can replace parts or do what I need to it. Secondly, I'm considering I need a computer that has this amount of power. So obviously, you've got to weigh those things up. Now, you might have a situation where the computer you're looking at fulfills the repairability aspect. It might not even be a framework laptop. It might be an old ThinkPad, right? And you're thinking, okay, so this amount of power will probably last me for a couple of years because, you know, the way things develop, the kernel and the graphical desktop environment and all this kind of stuff is going to become greater and greater and greater. It's going to become many more gigabytes, you know, over years. So if you're looking at thinking, I want to future-proof this, I like this style of laptop, but you've got this issue where you know you can't use it in a couple of years. However, there's another ThinkPad out there that is much more powerful, but it doesn't have the upgradability or the replaceable parts that are easily replaceable, for example. Then you're going to have to think, well, this is more important to me because I can't do my work without having this more powerful laptop. Then you might think, okay, but I've seen these framework laptops, and so this can fulfill all of my things. Yes, I've got to compromise. I haven't got a pointer stick or a num stick or whatever it's called. I can't even think what it's called. The pointer stick, right? And there's this and that. But hey, this fulfills, you know, 80% of what I need. Of course, and money's either no object or the money's the right. Obviously, you get the framework laptop. Let me put it this way. I'm not going to be going, you have to use a ThinkPad X60 because of some fundamentalist principle. No, of course I'm not going to say that. So I hope that kind of puts that in perspective. I hope I've sort of covered what I think about these things in as best way as possible. I can't recommend them to average consumers. There are better laptops out there for the money. Are you using Sway or i3? So technically, I'm using both. Basically, I'm using i3 on my X60 and X201 because of reasons I've stated before. I think you know why I run those, and I'm using Sway for Wayland because it's a drop-in replacement. That's why I've got those videos about setting it up to be effectively the same as the i3 setup. And I've still got, you know, some more videos to do on Sway. I wrote a function for my DWM build that allows me to toggle the mouse when I need it. Oh, okay. Interesting. Toggle the mouse when I need it. Okay, so what, it just turns off? So I know there's like certain scripts, isn't there, where you can make the mouse like disappear. I think Luke Smith has it in his in his labs thing. I noticed years ago when I used it, trying it out, and I noticed the mouse would disappear, and he had some package installed that made the mouse disappear or something, if that's right. Although that would just mean if you moved the pointer stick, the mouse would show up again. So maybe that's different. So it's like a literal toggle. Oh yeah, I can't remember the framework to average user. It just doesn't make sense for the price. As a developer, system admin, it's very good. I'm not entertaining the idea of Windows 11 on old machines. Everyone seems happy with Linux Mint so far as a replacement. Yeah. RAM consumption depends on the size of RAM and the speed. 32 gigabyte of DDR4, my Artix idles around 450 meg. Yeah. Pointer stick, track point, yeah. Random Tarot Destroyer. See, when I look at Tarot Destroyer, I'm thinking, are they a bot or not? I guess they kind of are. I don't know. I kind of look at those things and I kind of think, yeah, I kind of think, I kind of feel disappointed, not disappointed. That's what you said about my opinion on framework. Now, I kind of think how I'm not angry. What's the adjective I'm trying to think of? Yeah, when I see like a bot or somebody in the channel like that, or in the live stream, making comments that I don't know if they're trying to be funny. On the face of it, that was like trying to be funny. I kind of feel sad for them because like they're tryhards, trying really hard to be funny, and you can see like the contortions going through, or like the mental images they're trying to create to make you laugh. But I was thinking that much effort almost to come up with that kind of description or visual description, and it just my disappointment is it's like I didn't even like, you know, smirk. It didn't even like tickle me. I don't know, it's just interesting. You know, the kind of word contortions that they went through there, the descriptions, you sort of feel disappointed for them, whether it's a bot or not, that they yeah, back to tech. The function disables moving the mouse completely and warps it to the bottom left corner. I have another program that makes the cursor disappear. Okay. Warps it to the bottom left corner. That's interesting. All right. That's sort of interesting that it actually does that. That you actually do that. Is that using like something like Xset or something? Or Xset? Linux? I don't know. No, I don't think it's Xset. I think Xset's more for like Windows, isn't it? If you've got a window open or whatever. What terminal apps do you regularly use? Tmux Screen Ranger. Okay, so that's a good question. So nothing's really changed from the kind of videos I've done before, which is usually the kind of things I'm running. So in all honesty, I'm still using the kind of things I was using on the X201 on Arch Linux and Artix Linux, let's say, compared to Hyperbola that I'm running now on my X60. So what I'm using is the TTY, mainly the Linux console. Then if I'm loading a graphical environment, it is i3 or Sway, let's say, for Wayland. Xterm is terminal. If you remember a long time ago, I did sort of throwaway videos about how fast Xterm is. That's the fastest terminal, this kind of stuff. And then I did one about Foot terminal, which comes with Sway. So if I'm running Sway, it's Foot because that's the default, and it's supposed to be fast, and it seems to be okay. The Wayland Sway terminal. And GNU Screen is what I use to GNU Screen. Yes, GNU Screen is what I use to split screens in a TTY. I also use it for almost like a daemon. It's not really a daemon, obviously, but for my music player, CMOS, and anything else, I can just Control D detach it. I did in the past have some sort of elaborate script or program, if you want, or part of TTYSH that when the system booted up, I had it in the what was it? What's that file called on Artix? On Artix, you've got like local.rc or something. And it's like is it the service free of Runit? So Runit has like service level 1, 2, and 3, I think. So service level 1 is like your networking. Service level 2 is like something else. Service level 3 is like the last of the Runit init system that boots up, and you can put in like your scripts or programs in there. So I had something that started CMOS, and then it did some like elaborate detach thing, and then I could reattach it with, you know, more scripting in like TTYSH. And there was an update, I don't know, about a year ago, probably less than a year ago, on GNU Screen, and it, whatever reason, it completely broke this functionality. And I was playing around with it and whatever, but something happened. GNU Screen actually had a reasonably large update not long ago, and I was looking through like the logs of like the update and all this kind of stuff, and so in the end, I just used GNU Screen a lot simpler for detaching, say, the music player and have that in the background, because with the CMOS music player, you have basically a terminal remote control where once it's running as a process, you can control it from the terminal without actually having to have the TUI, the actual terminal user interface, loaded. So yeah, so it's not at the exact user level of logging. Well, you're logged in, I think, under service level 3, so it's not under bash RC. It was under local RC or something, I can't remember, under Runit in your like etc folder. Prosperous Potato uses the xwarp pointer function in xlib, and it warps the pointer because otherwise if I touch the track point, it will still make the cursor appear because the way xhide cursor works. Yeah, so xhide cursor, I think that's what Luke Smith used. Xwarp pointer warps the pointer because, okay, interesting. Thanks for sharing that, that's quite interesting. I wrote a similar script to launch Tmux. It launched CMOS, HTOP, emails, RSS readers, all in different tabs. Super nice. Good to hear. Yeah, so here's one of the things I don't do anymore. I used to do, and on the face of it, it makes sense. So when you load up a computer, or you load up your computer, there's usually a default pattern, I think. I might be wrong here. So the default pattern might be, okay, I've loaded up my computer, so I want music. Then maybe I want to load up the web browser. And obviously for people like us, we want RSS readers and things like this. So there's all these things that make sense to automate and load up straight away. And I used to do that. And on the face of it, if I'm using GNU Screen or if I'm using Tmux, I don't use Tmux. I did a video on Tmux. I prefer Screen, but they're much the same. I don't really mind. That would have all these different screens, windows under GNU Screen or under Tmux that I can, toggle through. A bit like the Primeagen. If you watch the Primeagen, he's very much about, I don't search for what I want. I just basically tab through my, was you got a Tmux sessionizer, so he just cycles through his windows, if you like, in his Tmux session. I don't actually do that anymore, and the reason is kind of a wrong reason, if that makes sense. So doesn't make sense. So on the face of it, I do the kind of similar things, right? I load up the same sort of things, but I also found that it just kind of annoyed me that I'd have all these different sessions or windows that were just sat in the background, sat under different sessions, and I didn't use them. So I've gone a sort of anti launcher now, where I run, if I open like TTYSH, okay, so that's what I tend to run first when I load up the TTY, and I don't even automate that to load up anymore. I have a function that I can call that I run for a process, right? It's like a planner. I kind of did a video on this. It's like a planner where I was like, okay, do you want to open this? And I can do it very quickly. So it'll be like, case statements, yes or no. So do you want to open RSS? Yes. Okay. Open RSS. Do you want to see, I don't know, your like notes? Yes, no, yes. So I'll open up the notes and all this kind of stuff. And then I can just cycle for it like a planner. And then I can leave stuff kind of open or closed or change it or whatever. So I like having a kind of planner when I start up the computer. I don't necessarily want like things just idling in the background until I call them. So I've gone that kind of route now. I don't know if that's the best way, but yeah, it's almost, I tell you what, it's almost like having clutter. I know that's not really the way to think about it, but I just worry. I don't even worry. What am I saying? It just kind of feels like I'm cluttering, and I can't justify having this stuff open. It's not a big deal, but that's how I do it now. I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. I used to have lots of tabs, if you like, open. I wrote a very similar script. Yeah, oh, sorry, I read that. You seem to be more focused on one thing at a time. Am I focused on more than one at a time? Yeah, so that's a good point. So I do try to focus now more on one thing at a time. I do find them a possible distraction. I don't know. Yeah, so that's also another reason I kind of focus on one thing at a time. Does the person walking in and out run Linux, or are they normally? They do not run Linux. I tried to convince them. Maybe one day. How are we doing for time? Yep, so I'm going to finish up in a minute. So it's a bit of a shorter stream, but I thought it'd be nice just to sort of check in. I want to be a bit more present on this channel than I have been in recent times. So that's right, never give up. So yeah, I'm trying to be a bit more present on the channel in my own way, commenting, streaming. So I'm trying to aim for Fridays and Sundays. So Fridays will probably be a bit shorter, an hour and a bit. Sundays maybe a bit longer. So yeah, if you turn up Sunday, we'll be around on Sunday. I'll do a hyperbola install, and I'll hopefully cover some of the nuances that you need to consider with hyperbola, certain things you need to configure and install. Hopefully I can remember. Hopefully I can remember, but we'll see. That's my only thing now with hyperbola. I've done all this configuration stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have to do on Arch. And I worry I can't remember it, but I'm sure I'll remember it. Anyway, even if I don't cover it, you'd be able to work out. I've got smart people. You're smart people on this channel. A lot smarter than me, really. That's which is not. It's not like worrying. That's not. I'm not trying to be patronizing to anybody, because a lot of people are smarter than me. I'm just amazed that they come to my channel to be smart. Like literally, I've got people like engineers on here, doctors. This is what they tell me, and people running like these, like running in the 70s and 80s, and all these elaborate computer systems and doing God knows what. And I'm like way out of my depth. I'm just a dude with some ideas on designs, and I run certain types of systems. So anyway, yeah, it'll be in a VM. It's not unfortunately going to be on bare metal, but that won't matter. It'll be fine. Anyway, cheers, guys. Hopefully I'll see a lot of you on Sunday. If you want to see me install hyperbola, probably forget how to do it. But I think it will be fine. I'll cover most stuff, and if there's anything missed out and you do install hyperbola, you'll be able to pick it up. Yeah. Try Linux. Yeah. Anyway, cheers. My voice is going. Cheers, guys. I'll see you Sunday. In the meantime, enjoy my videos, hopefully. See you later.